My name is Timo Vollbrecht. I'm the Director of Jazz Studies here at Brown, and as it is customary in the recent years, whenever we have amazing guest artists, I'd love to have you talk a little bit and not just play music. I mean, the music is the most important thing, obviously, and the most powerful way of showing what you do. But it's also really interesting to know a little bit about you and what's behind the music, and also I would like to kind of present you a little bit to this audience. You're both from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and not everyone in the US knows you yet, and I'd love to change that a little bit. So that's the reason for us sitting down here. I'd like to introduce to you Dani Gurgel and Debora Gurgel.
Thank you, Timo. A pleasure to be here. Thank you, guys.
So we've spent this entire week practicing or rehearsing with you. Actually, we've been rehearsing your music for many months in lead up to this. And you came to campus, and we had 2 wonderful rehearsals and some other events here on campus at Brown. We've known each other for some years now. We've worked together prior. We'll tell you more about that during the concert. When you came out with your big band album, and I saw this opportunity of bringing you here to work with us, I listened to the music and I thought, first of all, this is amazing. The music sounds amazing. But I also thought, oh, this sounds not easy, but also not super duper hard. I mean, everything's flowing, and it sounds light. And once we started rehearsing your music, we were all like, wow, this is actually really hard to play. So it's a little deceiving, And when we've been talking throughout this week, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and I think, Dani, you said it's like, well, our music has a certain kind of accent. And because it comes from a different culture. And I was just going to ask you a little bit about what you mean by that. Like, what do you mean by accent?
I think Brazilian music, in a way, sounds like Brazil, but our way of playing is very rooted in our Brazilian culture. So the same way that when I talk, I sound Brazilian, I sound with an accent. I can practice a lot of English, but I'm still gonna sound. You'll hear the Brazilian accent in my talking, and the same thing happens to our music. We're playing music that's rooted in Brazil, and it has a lot of connection to Brazilian Portuguese language, even when instrumental. And it has the 16th notes and all of the bases of our grooves and our rhythms. Everything is based in how we hear music in Brazil, in our cultural approach to it. So when we apply it to a big band as a medium, perhaps, we apply it to the formation of the big band and the instruments of the big band, but it still sounds with our own accent and with our own way of phrasing and with our own way of making rhythms in a Brazilian way.
So you are a vocalist, and one of the things that I thought is so interesting, and you talked about that in my class, is you developed your own way of scat singing. Can you say something about that?
Of course. When I started, I used to be an instrumentalist. I'm still an instrumentalist, but my instrument is my voice. But I studied a lot of different instruments until I figured out that the voice was my instrument of choice. So I went through the piano, the electric bass, and the saxophone for a longer time, and the flute. And when I started singing, I had already a lot of knowledge on music from playing instruments, but I was looking for techniques for scat singing. And when I tried scat singing with the techniques that I could find and the syllables that I could find, they were all based in jazz. So they had an accent. To me, it sounded like an accent of the English language, the English language spoken in the US. And it sounded as if I was singing Brazilian music with an accent, but that was not my own accent. So I started researching into Brazilian rhythms and Portuguese language and linguistics. And it's so strange to research linguistics to sing music without lyrics. But I went into linguistics to understand the sounds of Portuguese language and to connect those sounds with the percussive sounds of our music. And connecting all of that, I came up with a lot of syllables that are not common in jazz scat singing, but to me, they fit perfectly into Brazilian music scat singing.
Can you give an example, maybe?
For example, there's a song by Hermeto Pascoal, Forró Brasil, and when I used to play the saxophone, I just knew the names of the notes, and it sounded a little bit like. And when I started singing that, I felt it didn't groove the way I wanted it to groove. So I took out the vowels, and I removed the vowels and I removed the notes, and I just had and I thought, how do I make this sound Brazilian? And I thought of a Brazilian pandeiro, and I thought, oh, how would I groove this? So, and then I thought, now let's put back the vowels and the notes and
This is so great, because I like to talk to you too, Debora, because I feel like that's how you play the piano. Because, I mean, we're all honestly in awe how you play. I think I can speak for the whole band. What I think is so cool is like you in with your two hands, you like it almost sounds like a percussion orchestra. Is that something that you've thought about, or does it just come out of you? Or maybe you can talk about that.
I guess. Hello, everyone. I am the piano player, and the arranger and composer too. And the way that I play the piano is like you said, is a more percussive way, because all the instruments in Brazilian music simulate percussion instruments. Like when we play the bass, we play thinking on the timbres. So we transfer this swing to the bass or the trombone or the low frequency instruments. And the piano, we had a lot of grooves simulating the pandeiro, the agogô, and the other percussion instruments that are inside the Brazilian music. I heard these sounds all my life, so I internalized these sounds, these grooves, and I put them in contemporary harmonies or melodies, but with the Brazilian feeling of the percussion.
Yeah, you will hear this tonight. You mentioned that you're also the arranger and composer of many of these tunes, arranger of all of these tunes that you brought with you. Your writing is amazing, and one thing that you said to me, which I just want to repeat, and maybe that's something you want to talk about, is you told me that when you write voices in your music, you're trying to mix the orchestra, and maybe it's also notable to say that Dani owns a recording studio, but you're like a composer mixer. How do you do that?
Oh well, I learned that always when I write an arrangement, I always think in the melody. The counterpoints are very important in Brazilian music, like choro or something like Bach. You have the counterpoints, sometimes one counterpoint, sometimes two counterpoints, and so secondary melodies, the harmony, and when you choose each instrument will play each element. Sometimes you need to, like you have a mix with buttons, and so if one element is too low, you double. More instruments do the same line, so you mix on your arrangement. So when you play, you heard the sounds in the equal volume or in most volume when you want more people doubling the same melody. And other thing that I don't told you, I always try to equalize the left hand of the band and the right in stereo.
Oh, interesting.
So you are on the audience, you hear sometimes, okay, the attention is here, or the sound, the principal sound is there, or is coming from left to right, or from right to left. So this is important in big bands and in orchestras too.
That is so interesting. Also, I should mention that you studied engineering.
Yeah.
That's your background, right? Maybe that's all coming together.
Yeah.
One more thing about the Brazilian music. So we're the jazz band, right? So we've been working on a lot of jazz repertoire. We've been working on swing. A lot of our music here in the US, at least in the jazz world, is very triplet based, right? It's like all groups of threes, traditionally at least. You said that in Brazil you actually have both, but there's a difference between the East Coast and the West, right?
Yes. On the east coast of Brazil, we have a lot of influence from European, African, and the west coast of Brazil, we have a lot of influence from Latin America. And the rhythms are totally different. And on the east coast, the rhythms are more based on like samba. This is the base. From the west coast, the Latin American rhythms are mainly like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 is different. So the music from that states near the Latin America has so many different rhythms that are not samba, are not is guarania, is modinha, is another rhythms not so famous like a samba or baião or forró.
That's fascinating. Dani, one thing I admire about you a lot is you wear so many hats. You're like a true multidisciplinary person. Like I met you as a musician, but we happen to be on the same record label in Europe. So the way we met is the record label put us together, and they flew me out to Sao Paulo, and I came to you, and it turns out they have a recording studio, and you're doing video and photography. You also have a PhD. You gave a really interesting talk about your research here. I'm wondering how do you think about like your life with so many things you do? Is this something that you think influences your music in a good way, or is it a challenge? I don't know. I'm just curious.
It definitely influences my music in a good way. And I like the analogy of wearing so many hats, because usually I think I spin a lot of different plates. So I just have to go back to the other one. And it's like I can never drop one of them. So if I spend too much time doing just one thing, another plate will fall from the, the plate spinning thing. Yeah. So everything I do is connected. When I study communication for the PhD and when I teach, it's connected to music, and it influences the way I write music. And a lot of the music I write is influenced by my research. Even most of the new music I'm writing for my next album is influenced by how we are, like the talk we had on Thursday, and how we are being influenced by data. And a lot of the music I'm writing is influenced by that. So kind of a criticism to how data is manipulating the way we live. And when I do photography, what I mostly do with photography is shoot album covers at our studio, where we record the albums of musicians we admire. And sometimes I shoot video. And the thing I mostly do when I shoot video is either I direct with a lot of cameras, and I'm cutting between the cameras, and I'm counting, and I'm like, oh, guys, let go, and I'm switching cameras like that. And sometimes it's just me by myself inside the studio, and there's a lot of musicians, and it's just one camera and a one-shot video, and I rehearse with them, and I will know who's taking a solo when, and I'm paying attention how many choruses they're doing, and I'm following to the other one, and I listen to something and I follow that. It's like I'm playing with the band when I'm shooting video. So it's a lot of different techniques, but everything is connected to the music inside of me. And I think sometimes it's even it's so connected. Like sometimes when we work with music, sometimes we teach, and sometimes we write, and sometimes we play music by other people. And I think it's just connected in the same way, but with different techniques.
Interesting. Just to give you a little bit of context, Dani did really interesting research about the music business in Brazil. She looked at genres, and I might be butchering your pitch, but you looked at genres, you looked at data, so it's actually a very quantitative approach to your research, and you looked at how Brazilian artists from different genres blow up, gain popularity. You look at the data, what happened, and you looked for certain patterns based on genre. We talk a lot about music, and at the music department, obviously, we don't always talk about business. And we're all independent artists, so we I don't know, unfortunately, or it's a fact. We have to also market our music, and we have to put it out. We put so much love and creativity into writing music, and we want to share it with the world. How, based on your research, maybe, what's your take on how do you put your music out? How do you get us to listen to your music? What's your strategy?
Wow, that's so difficult, because in the end of my research, I studied 4 very characteristic. Oh, this is so difficult to me. Red roses for Ruby, red rubies for Rosie. Characteristically, I did it. Characteristically Brazilian genres. And so in 3 of them, I could find similar strategies that people were taking. So one of them was all about radio, and the other one was all about YouTube, and the other one was using like a competitive company, like an alternative to Spotify. And when I got to Brazilian MPB, which we call Música Popular Brasileira, Brazilian popular music, which is a very big umbrella that fits a lot of music, and our music kind of fits into it, there was no common strategy. So to be honest, I can't draw a roadmap, and I've been working hard in telling other musicians that anyone who poses themselves as a music business strategy that has a written down roadmap that you have to follow is probably just taking your money.
But what are you going to do for your next album? What do you think? Do you have a plan or not?
I'm creating a plan for my next album, and I'm mostly focusing, right now I'm mostly focusing on writing the music, and I'm trying really hard not to write music thinking about the business, which is really hard. So I'm at the music writing phase now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Debora, when you compose, like, this might be a hard question, I don't know, but like, how do you start to write?
Well, I started on piano, hours and hours and hours and hours. Sometimes I can't compose thinking, oh, I will compose a choro and sit down on piano and compose a choro. Don't. Sometimes I want to compose a choro and I sit down on piano and compose a frevo. Like I have no control. And so the compositions are born in several ways. Sometimes I am studying something from another artist, from Hermeto Pascoal, from Duke Ellington, and I stop on a progression or a chord or a melody or a teeny melody. Oh, this is great. And when my heart says this is great, I stop to study what I am studying and start to rehearse about this part of music, and always on piano, and always singing. I compose singing. I use the piano for comping, just for comping. I always compose the melodies singing, even that melody is. All the melodies I sing, and sometimes I spend one day to compose a song, sometimes a few months, and sometimes I am so happy that, well, this is great, and I put on my piano, and the next day I will play, this is not great. Okay, start again. And I think composing is a day-by-day work. All day you work. Sometimes you compose something that you think okay, this will be a great tune, and you have to work on that, and that's the way that I think. Sometimes I have time. Sometimes Dani schedule. Okay, we have a recording session next week. Let's go compose. The arrangements that you will listen to. Some arrangements I spend a lot to do, and some arrangements more fast.
One thing that you will hear, which I think is so fascinating, is you chose to expand the saxophone section, adding 2 flutes.
Yeah.
Why?
Because the Brazilian music has all the time all the composers that I like, Tom Jobim, Dori Caymmi, Moacir Santos, and a lot of Edu Lobo, and a lot of another composers. The Brazilian music has this flute important on top of arrangements. A lot of flute phrasing. And I like so much the sound of a big band, a traditional big band. But to do Brazilian music is not enough for me, just the saxophone double the flutes. And I wanted that shining from the flutes. So the big band has the traditional formation plus 2 flutes.
I want this in every chart from now on.
Yeah.
After this project, it sounds so cool.
Yeah.
Listen, we don't have much time actually because we have a concert. But let's see. I think we can do one question. Is that okay? One question. Anybody has one question? Let me just rephrase the question for the tape. So the question is, where your passion comes from, and where did it all start and originate?
Oh, me first. Why, I'm older. I'm first. Well, I like music. My eyes shine with music since I don't know why. Since I was born, and since I was very young, like 5 years old, I play on the backyard of our house, and my neighbor plays the piano, classical piano. And I always told to my mom and my dad, I want this, I want to do this, since very early. So I started to play piano with 8 years old. When I was 8 years old, I started with classical music that I love so much too. And I always listened to the records from my dad and my mom. And their records from Brazilian music, from American music, from swing. And I always play it together. Without I didn't know what I was doing. I just playing. And so later, when I was a teenager, I found a school, the first Brazilian school of popular music. We didn't have schools of Brazilian popular music in Brazil. And I went there to study with Hamilton Godoy, the great piano player from Zimbo Trio, the very famous trio from samba jazz from the 60s. And so I started to play. I started to play professionally with, I guess, 14 years. And so I never stopped.
And I was... when I was really young, I would already listen to her playing at home. So just to, for clarity, she's my mom. Some people ask if we're sisters, and she's my mom. And I would listen to her playing, and she would play with so much joy that I thought, I want to do that. And she never put me into music schools as an obligation. I asked to study music, and I would always be, so I started really early, and I would just go through one instrument to the other, and living, being at the music school and seeing her play and seeing everyone play, I would just come back from school and spend the whole afternoon, and then there would be like the final presentations for the end of the year of the students. And then when I was a little bit older, I would be part of the support band for those students. And I was just living through that. When I was like 13, I was already doing gigs. And São Paulo has a very vibrant musical scene. So every day in São Paulo, you can just say, oh, let's listen to some music. Okay, so we have 10 options. Which one are we going to choose? So I would just go out and listen to music and listen to music and listen to music and listen to music, and then get back home and listen to some more music that I had purchased on the way out. So listening to that and the vibrant scene in São Paulo that you can people from all over Brazil come to São Paulo because of the scene. So it's a city that you can just find people from anywhere and listen to different music. So that was really part of the core of my musical history.
I think this is a great segue because the next thing we're going to do is listen to the music. So, Dani and Debora, thank you so much for being here. You've left us levitating. And I really hope you will enjoy tonight's program. Thank you for coming to Brown. And you get a little breather, and we'll see you in 25 minutes. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.